Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Here's an update on the Ponte Tresa fig cuttings. I had two cuttings about 8 inches long. One was an end, had the terminal bud on it. The other section was not. I cut it in two, and this one here, you can see the extent of the growth just took off. And the other cutting that I cut into two, I think I have already lost those two. It looks like some roots slowly progressing, so I don't know if there's still viable growth going on underneath, but I think the part above the soil line, it looks like the bark shriveling up. And I noticed a couple of weeks ago there was some white mold and some brown mold growing just at the soil line on the bark, and that's not that type of mold isn't going to grow on healthy bark. That's growing on rotting, decaying bark. So the roots, they sort of look like they're growing, but they're very they're almost like hair-like, and you can see through them, and they look like they're making some progress. So there could be some viable wood underneath the soil. I don't know. And it looks like today I'm discovering it looks like there might be gnats in the soil, so those will do damage also. This cutting, I'm going to up pot this today. It's got some really good roots on it, and I want to hydrate that, so I'm really going to soak that to get the roots hydrated, so they won't stick to the cup, because they'll stick to the cup, the plastic, so when you go to remove it, you'll leave a lot of roots behind on the cup itself. So I want to see if I can minimize that damage. So I'll give that a good soaking and then put it into a little bit larger pot, or I'll probably keep it, well, depending on how fast it grows this summer. Could leave it in that pot, but it looks like it's going to be pretty vigorous, at least this cutting that has successfully rooted. So you can see the roots here, pretty extensive, pretty much have filled up the cup here. And it really dries out quickly now with all this surface area on the leaves, even in a humid environment. And I think with all these roots here, and if you look, the roots have really hardened off, so they've turned yellow, and when they dry out, it really doesn't, not stress them, but really changes them and toughens them up. So with that amount of roots, I've had the top off here for about 15 minutes now, and I don't see much or any wilting going on right now. And what happens is, because these leaves are pretty much grown in this artificial environment here with no wind, high humidity, it sort of reminds me of, to see the application of gold leaf, and then they have that backing, that paper, and when they peel that, just the breath can move that gold leaf around, and that's what these leaves are like. They haven't grown under the stresses of outside wind and rain and sun. So if I was to put this outside, the leaves would immediately burn, turn white, and shrivel up, fall off, and whether the cutting would then recover, you'd have to wait and see. So you have to transition this. I'm contemplating taking out these two cuttings because I've seen the gnats in there, and I'm sure they're probably already in the bark, but I don't know if that's the same environment that they'll flourish in with the orchid bark there. But definitely, I'm thinking that what might have happened is, because this spread out so quickly with the leaves, the bark, even though there's no buds on those cuttings there, that having bright light on them might help that start forming I think it could still photosynthesize. There's still some photosynthesis going on if you have a bright light on that bark, and then the bud would produce. But it could be that just all the energy from the cutting was exhausted. But it looks to me now that the bark is kind of shriveled up, desiccated, and that's just dead bark on top of the wood. So I don't know if the camera can pick that up. You can see sort of a brown, I don't know, it came off there a little bit. Some mold. So I don't know if there's still, this one looks a little bit better. If you look here, where are they? That's the extent of the, I don't even think the camera's picking that up. There's a root right here. But it looks like these cuttings here, see, I don't have the light. You can see the mold. There's some right there. This looks shriveled here. Yeah, I just cut that. There's no green whatsoever. This is just completely dead. That's why the mold's growing on there. Yeah, there's no green. Those are dead. And this one here is even in worse shape. It's more visible with the shriveled bark. Yeah, see that? That cutting is completely dead. So there's nothing there whatsoever. Now whether there's still, you know, this is dying from this end down to the soil line, and then whether there's anything green going on, or I mean, this actually has some roots. So, you know, it just leave it alone, I guess. I might just put that in the lean-to, put them in the shade, forget about them, and maybe they'll surprise me. But I think they're a lost cause. Yeah, these leaves look like they're starting to droop a little bit. So I just want to really soak this before I try to remove it. Let it sit for a little bit. You can see they can't even take the weight of water on them. So I already went ahead and mixed up some garden soil here with some pine bark and perlite. I'm not going to go overboard with any fertilizers or lime or anything. And it's going to be pretty cool and rainy all this week. Temperatures like in the 50s, so could be nice transition weather. This has been out of the bin for about a half hour, and it's really not doing that much. It has a really good, strong, thick roots. So I might just put this in the lean-to under the canopy of the other fig trees. I'll look at it in an hour or so and see what it looks like. But this might be able to just go ahead and put this in the lean-to. Let's see if I can get it out of this cup here without breaking anything, or not breaking too many roots here. It's really stuck in there. Oh, there it goes. So you can see the roots I have. Some pretty good strong roots. I'm not going to do anything to these. I don't want to disturb them. They can easily just start spreading into this new soil here. So let me fill this up. And I put a coffee filter on the bottom there. So I got in the habit of doing that. Yeah, you know, looks like perfect level there. So we just go fill this up with soil all around. It's a nice light mix. Roots will be able to easily get into it, spread out into it. I want to baby this. I got to remind myself that this is the only cutting that I have that's alive, at least obvious. The other two, I'll just, I already put them in the lean-to. I don't have any expectations of them surviving. They're pretty much dead above the soil line. I know in the past I have removed a cutting to see what was going on and regretted it when I found out that there was all these roots growing on it, and I disturbed it unnecessarily. So I'll just press this down a little bit. That's it. I don't want to disturb this. So that's it. That's where I'm at with this one. Obviously vigorously growing Ponte Tresa cutting. One of two. Whether or not the second one, you know, I took the risk. I tried to see if I could get, you know, 3 cuttings successfully rooted. And it looks like it didn't work out for me, so this will go in the lean-to, I think. I might change my mind in an hour. I have to water that in a little bit. So water this in a little bit. So even with this overcast, I bet the light that this is receiving is even stronger than the fluorescent lights that are on, that it was used to growing under. So even in this environment, it's probably going to toughen it up. I can feel the humidity in here, and if it stays like this all week, this should be a nice transition environment. So I could always stick it under the canopy of these fig trees here. Here's the extent, the progress on some of the figs that I have in the lean-to. So I'll take a look at this in an hour, and if it's really drooping, I'll put it back into the aquarium under high humidity. But I don't know what the humidity is in here. It's pretty humid. I'll have to check the remote sensor, the thermostat. It's got the humidity reading on it, but I can feel the humidity in here. And leaf drop. This is one of the all the reeds that cuttings that I produced last year have survived, and looks a little light green there. Maybe you need a little fertilizer. So I've got the 2 in the cups there. Let's see what happens with those. Got a lot of yellow here on the Meyer lemon tree. Need to fertilize that. Putting out another flush of flowers. Just got through flowering. This is New England Gardening with the one surviving, although seems to be vigorous, Ponte Tresa fig cutting. Remains to be seen about these 2, but I think they're pretty much goners. That was one I cut in half. So we'll see what this does now that it's in the new pot. You can see there it did leave a couple of finer roots. The rest of the cup's really clean, so didn't lose too much. So the humidity in the lean-to is 92%. That's higher than in the aquarium. So if it stays overcast, it's not going to get too hot in there. 59 degrees in there. It doesn't even know what's the conditions have actually probably improved as far as that cutting is concerned. So this is what it's supposed to be like all week. It's great pea growing weather, Oregon giant snow peas, so they should take off this week. This is New England Gardening. Thanks for watching.